with the policies and the like this whole movement in the government around open source, has that had an impact in the region overall, like private companies, education, like academia?
Academia, yes, because they're now starting to realize that cloud computing, cybersecurity, all these kind of topics are a must for them. So a lot of the in Mexico, we have different levels of education or institutions. So we have like the state universities, and then we have some like technical schools and technical universities that they all belong to kind of like the federal government umbrella. So a lot of them are starting to like take on now open source development and incorporating these ideas into their academic programs. Also, like for example, Infotech, what we also did in our masters and all our educational programs, we also started incorporating ethics into the topic of software development and technology, because I think that's also another important change that we need to start having as a worldwide technological transition that we're having, making sure that the technology we're developing is not going to be harmful for someone or something. So that's something that has been happening. I think the academic world has latched onto this. When it comes to companies, there was a very big change because a lot of the companies that were developing software for the government, a lot of them actually stopped doing what they were doing and they transitioned into some other things because Infotech was developing or the government was developing a lot of its own technology. So that was kind of like a very big impact as well. And we have had a lot of countries from Latin America asking us about what we're doing. You know, through the time that I was in Infotech, we had a lot of conversations with a lot of countries, and they were very interested about how a government could actually start building these capacities and migrating platforms and like creating their own clouds and creating their own infrastructures and building their own data centers. And that has been like, I am aware of like 2-3 projects of countries that we spoke to that they're actually implementing something similar to what we had done. Of course, like it's interesting to see how they're going to follow up on and how they're going to start making these technological decisions. But yeah, like Mexico has always been kind of like an important player in Latin America, because even like with singers or like soap operas, all these kind of things, they're launched in Mexico and then they start growing in the rest of LATAM, you know. So hopefully like that can be replicated to what we're doing with open source. Like also like I was able to be in Indianapolis a couple of months ago now. It's not that long ago for the Open Infra conference, and there were a couple of Spanish speakers there, so we were able to have a good chat. And that was kind of like our big debate, like how can we keep on pushing this agenda and this topic in the region, and actually creating this awareness through other private sector and public sector institutions. And also, like, I think we need to work so much. I think there's a lot of work being done in Latin America, but we somehow don't have the proper forums, or we're not that open to sharing what we're actually doing with open source. And I think that's kind of like the big challenge for the region.
Do you see that changing?
I am not sure. I think there was last year there was a very big event in Guadalajara, and it was very interesting to see the people that turned up and spoke at the event, and it was at one of the universities, so it was a lot of interest. I think that as communities, there needs to be more presence here and more events, because then it's also very difficult for people sometimes to travel to the US because of the visa requirements and those kind of things. And like, for example, right now in Mexico, for processing a tourist visa, it takes you 1.5 years to get an appointment at the US Embassy. So for somebody that wants to go to an open conference in the US, well, you probably need to be planning to go to it in 2027 or 2028 because you won't get a visa before then. No? So like, I think there needs to be a little bit more work done here. why it has been done, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if like precisely like this openness to actually sharing and talking about it, if that's one of the issues. But but it's interesting. Like, I do think this, and like I mentioned before, like there's some great talent here. So how we connect the right talent to the right methods and get them to share and talk about it, and being, it's again, it's about one of those equations of getting the right people in the right place in the right time and doing an incredible event that could probably boost other ones. And we were actually talking about maybe doing like some Spanish tracks as well in some of these open source events. I think that could also maybe be interesting for those that don't speak English that well. And that's something that I also like grasped when I was working here in Infotech. Most of my like key tech people, they were not fluent in English. So that always made them really concerned about participating in anything, because they were just concerned that they were not going to understand. So we need to think about those kind of things and see how we can shape them into it and bridging those gaps.